All right, so I have no pictures. Actually, engineers really don't like pictures. If you see them in pictures, they try to duck out of the way. So, but I'm here to tell you that they do exist. In fact, we have a bunch of them in the back row. So the engineers here, Pete, Frankie, Jeffers, there's Deb, and there's Andy. So they're all in the back row. We try to be here, but we try not to be we try to be kind of anonymous. In operations, we have 13 engineers and 2 managers. Development, we have 12 engineers and a manager. User experience expert and user interface expert, they are in the back. Jan and Jesse are back there, and I'm sure many of you have spoken to them. In software integration, we have 10 engineers and a manager. Project management, we have Deb and her sidekick Sherry, who works part-time, and of course me. So they all work very hard, and I think you've seen some of their results that they've been doing. Okay, accomplishments since ARIN 40. So one of the things that we do is we work ACSPs, as many as we can. Many of the ones that are currently on the list that are outstanding are really big lifts, and we take them in as we can, but here's a few of them that are coming out on May 12th. And you may have noticed, if you're a careful study of these presentations, that a lot of the things that Nate and I say are the same. But it's kind of sad that I'm always after Nate. So anyways, we work on a lot of technical debt. I'm sad to say that we still have a CentOS 4 box in our infrastructure. We have a couple of them. Any of you remember CentOS 4? Okay. How many of you were born after CentOS 4 came out? Okay, so anyways, we have a lot of work to do. In fact, with the ARIN, we don't have a garage. We actually have a computer facility, and it's more than 2 computers. It's actually 500 to 600 boxes that we manage. So you say, wow, you know, there's actually a lot to do here. There's actually a lot of moving parts that go within ARIN. And frankly, there's a lot of effort that has to be undertaken in terms of updating these machines. We've also have been doing lots of improvements for internal customer service. With transfers, for example, we are using a tool that wasn't intended really for doing transfers that actually kind of sucked wind. And we had to fix it for John in RSD so that they can do the right thing with transfers. And we've done that. As well as many other customer service enhancements. We've moved a lot of our ARIN Online components to Ansible. And I just want to give you an idea on ARIN Online. You all use ARIN Online. And anyone have any idea how many pages are in ARIN Online? Almost 400.
Oh, wow.
So we have 397 pages to be exact in ARIN Online. Out of that, and this is the dynamic portion of the website, out of that, 276 have been converted from JSF, which is the old framework that we used to use when we started ARIN Online 10 years ago, to Ansible. And Ansible is going to be used as a bootstrap to start moving into sort of more modern technologies like Java 8. We're on Java 7. Java 9 just came out. So again, just shows you we have to kind of keep up. We have 121 pages left to go. And a lot of these pages are not pages that you could say there's a one-to-one. As we go through these things, we're also designing them, and you'll see this in the next couple slides. We're trying to make them more user-friendly, because we heard you, hey, there's things that are just not as intuitive as they should be, and we're trying to fix that through Jan and Jesse's help. We've also do the new framework for the new website. We are sort of taking over the responsibility and making sure that the static portion of the website with the new framework is going to be under engineering's control, and that CMSD is then relieved for some of that framework and that they can do primarily content. We've moved to a DevOps model, and I'm going to show you an example of that in the future slides when we were moving our components into Ansible as well. And again, lots of user interface work that's going in ARIN Online. So I'm going to show you 2 of these examples. Nate showed you 2 others. Thankfully, I don't have any lists on one. So no more Control F on these particular pages. So here's a couple more examples where you have the old on the left, where you can see that the functions were sort of listed, and now you can see the new on the right, where you can see that the actions are sort of broken out. Likewise with linking contacts, and this is something that was, I remember when we were doing this, we had this sort of mandate that we couldn't use JavaScript, and we had to come out with a way to try to make things move back and forth into linking contacts for like organizations and so on. So we had this framework to the left, and it turned out that it's really kind of hard to understand. So we've moved to a subcomponent of this is what you see on the right. Again, is hopefully something that's much easier to understand and is more intuitive. And I think we've heard that. Operational achievements, one of the things that we're doing internally is we're building up operational security. We're baking in two-factor authentication for access within our ARIN online networks for all staff, for example. We're improved our firewalling. We used to have ACLs on our routers for our public-facing sites. Now we move that to our firewall for better capability. We're working on a lot of technical debt. Much you've heard about with our OSs that we have to maintain, our various hardware systems that need to be updated and so on. And we have moved in the process of moving from 3 configuration management systems into 1 to help that framework along. And of course, we're modernizing our virtualization managers as well. We use a lot of virtualized boxes in our environment too. Here you can see our ARIN online usage. It continues to be fairly impressive in terms of number of users that log in over the years. 137,000 and change have come in since Q1 of 2018. What's more impressive is the number of people that are power users. And if you look at this over the years, you'll see that more and more people are sort of gravitating to the greater than 16 logins. Kind of makes sense because it's been there for a couple of years and you need to log in every once in a while, but there's some people that log in, it seems to be daily. That's fine, that's good. Here you can see the provisioning transactions. The RESTful are the ones in red. Templates are the one in orange. And you can see that the RESTful transactions are overtaking cumulatively over templates. Templates are still growing, but at a lesser rate. DNSSEC. I'm sad to say that DNSSEC isn't doing so well. You can see here that we've had 10 additional organizations that have come in. We have 5,000 organizations within ARIN that are members. 158 have taken advantage of DNSSEC. Out of the total number of delegations that we have, 645,000, there's 878 secured zones in the reverse. Okay, so that's about a fraction of a percent. RPKI is actually about the same. So you can see here that the number of organizations, 361, are playing within ARIN Online now with RPKI, and they've created 604 ROAS, which cover 825 networks. One of the things that's interesting here is that you can see that up down, the people of using the delegated model has actually decreased. And that 1 is actually a sort of a misnomer because there's a two-step process in terms of doing up down, and they've never followed through in step 2 and becoming operational. So really we have no one using the delegated model right now. And the person that did use it, they spent a tremendous amount of resources making that happen and realized that it wasn't worth their while and has come back into the fold using the hosted model, which most of the people do here. Here you can see our Whois RWS queries per second. You can see that we're starting to rise again. We had this period back in 2010, which just is amazing. The number of queries that we saw was just unbelievable, out of the world. And since has come down quite a bit, but it's starting to come up again. And it's giving us a little bit of time to focus in on that. Here you can see Whois RWS and RDAP queries over V6. And you can see that, frankly, it's about 2-3% as time goes on. That's the way it is. With the RDAP, you can see here with V4 and V6 that we have the number of queries is going up and down per month, but it's definitely some usage. What I'd like to do at this point is talk to you about an example of directory service abuse that we've had. And what you have here, can you all see that graph? Is it pretty good? So, John, you use this, the pointer thing?
There's a little center button.
The center button? Okay, sure enough. You can see the spike that happened here. So this started happening about 6 a.m. on February 1st rather. It was a Thursday. And we started seeing an increasing amount of traffic against our Whois RWS servers. So at that point, we started looking at the logs. What's going on here? Turns out that there was some user who decided to get a Python script, and somehow he got took advantage of a huge amount of IP address space. And he was coming at it from hundreds of thousands of IP addresses hitting us and asking us for, tell us what 1.1.1.1 is. Now tell us what 1.1.2 is. Now tell us what 1.1.3 is. All the way up the line through 255. .255.255.255. So we were like, okay, this is kind of crazy, and it was affecting our service. And we actually had this timed out when they were going to hit the next /8 and so on and so forth. We actually contacted the regional registry in which this ISP, well, there's a bunch of ISPs associated with this that were affected by, that were sending out this traffic. And they never called us back. They never sort of did anything about it. So anyways, and we actually ended up having to filter them out. So when we were doing this, what we had is we're using the DevOps model now. So it's not just operations that gets paged to deal with this. And if you looked at the graphs a couple of days earlier, I mentioned a little bit earlier, it actually spanned the weekend. And over that weekend, both operations and development and SI were all looking at, okay, what can we do to, one, mitigate this immediate issue, two, optimize the code so we can actually do a better job of this sort of things as well in the future. And of course, optimizing the code is you can't just have that fixed right away. So, but we definitely saw some things that we need to change. But it gave the developers a real-time sort of way of seeing how the code is actually performing in the wild. So it gave them some good ideas to go back on what to fix. And what we ended up doing is putting filters into place to block traffic from those offending ISPs. Occasionally we would lift them and see if did it go away, and it did not. So we closed them up again. So as of today, the filters are still in place. I'm probably pretty confident the traffic has stopped, and at some point we need to lift them. So is this a reasonable course of action? I've talked about this a number of times in terms of dealing with directory service abuse. And here's just another example of what we deal with. Going back to slides and statistics, our IRR maintainers are increasing at a normal rate. The number of routes and Route 6 objects we have in the IRR are increasing at a normal rate. INetNum and INet6Num objects are also increasing at a normal rate. And here you can see the IRR object breakout by organization. And what's interesting about this is when I put it together is there's a lot of sort of drift going up north. Number of organizations that are getting into a larger and larger number of objects that they manage within our IRR. And I thought it was kind of interesting seeing that there's some people, one organization has 7,802 objects. INetNums, INet6Nums, Route 6, etc. So, what are we working through Q3? I would continue to work on automated software installation and working on fully redundant services. We're also working on user experience engineering, working on this responsive website that Richard is heading up. And we're doing test drives and have been doing test drives. We're out there in the hallway right now asking for your input. And IRR, with the consultation that's ending soon, we encourage you to put your input into place on what you would like to see for us to do so that we can actually put it on the roadmap. And I definitely would love to hear your feedback on what we should do. We're doing some other work as well, accounting system upgrade using a RESTful API, upgrading Postgres. The current version is almost out of support. We need to upgrade to 10.3. It also uses a high reliability solution that's reliant on an old Cisco 3750G switch, which was made in 2004. It's getting kind of old. We need to find a replacement for it. We have a lot of technical backlog, as I mentioned before, going from Java 7 to Java 8, moving to a stateless application service, which we're on our way with, as you've seen with ARIN Online, using automated build systems using Ansible, folding our Puppet iterations into Ansible for configuration management, and replacing end-of-life boxes. And some of them are like really old. I go in the computer room, and the oldest boxes have yellow tabs on them, and I count those yellow tabs, and in fact, they have one in my office right now for me to take to my farm to actually shoot. So anyways, that's what we hope to be taken care of. Coordination with the other regional registries. We're working on differences with our RDAP implementations. Andy gave a great presentation about that earlier. It turns out even though there's a spec, we still do things in a different way. Accordingly, we also have a spec, but we do things in a different way with extended statistics as well, and we need to coalesce on a common framework with both of them. With our internet technology health indicators, work that's going on, we're coordinating with our RS brethren, with the regional registries in terms of what our framework should be in terms of reporting. RPKI, we work within RPKI, we work within IETF, working on various operational enhancements we like to see with the protocol. And that is like, for example, sort of a looser way of doing validation so that we don't have operational snafus in a big way that takes out part of the internet. Signed objects for trust anchor locators to make it more secure. And we put out an all resources trust anchor applicability statement that all the regional registries have taken care of. And as Kathy reported, within the IETF, they seem to have amnesia that we've done this. So with that, I'm done. And are there any questions?
Microphones are open for questions. Participant?
Yes, remote participant Jason Schiller, Google ASOAC. At Mark K, out of the 397 pages in ARIN Online, how many have a first, previous, one, two, ... next, last button?
I don't really know at this point in time.
How difficult is it to get Owen's button to show me all in a list for all of these?
Okay, so noted.
How about a setting to default to the list version with a button to show me less?
Okay.
Okay,
We'll explore that. Thank you.
thank you.
Rear microphone.
Hi, Chris Woodfield, Salesforce, ARIN AC. Could we go back to the Whois abuse slide?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify a question on this. Was this considered abuse because of the breadth of the queries or the rate of the queries negatively impacting the overall system?
Okay. It was certainly. Okay, there we go. So it was certainly the rate. So and you can look here and you can say, wow, you know, that's not really that high. And you're right. We actually have some performance things that we're fixing as well. And actually part of this was actually a good learning experience for the developers looking at this and saying, hey, this part of the code I actually got to optimize a little bit better because it's performing fairly poorly. So there's a little bit of that. A lot of it's really sort of defense because I want to make sure that not only this one person or people or whoever they were got access to the system, but you too can get access to the system when you needed it.
Okay. Yeah. My point being, I don't believe that that being able to query everything in the database and is itself abuse, and there's been a number of things, but obviously rate is an issue, so I just
Yes.
wanted to get that clarified.
Yes. It was definitely right.
Okay, thank
It
you.
was just interesting seeing the pattern, because we were trying to figure out who's the actor here, and what do we need to do to mitigate it.
And is this a common occurrence, this sort of,
Sadly,
pattern?
it's not, it doesn't happen every week. But it does happen maybe once every 3 months, or to that effect. And it always seems to happen over the weekends, and probably when one of the ops managers decides to go on vacation.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Far microphone.
My name is Blaise. I'm a new ARIN fellow. I have a question regarding something that's some email that we received last year, and those email was in regards of ARIN website which were under DOS attacks. And I would like to know, as a CTO, if you have taken steps to mitigate those risks, and also can you respond if, for example, we have other types of attacks that were concern integrity or confidentiality of information for our members?
Good questions. So first of all, we have two ways of two methods of flows really within ARIN. One is our provisioning systems, data that comes in, and it comes in from you and it's authenticated. And the other is the display of that information, and that's put on our public-facing sites. So in both cases, what we have is we have inline DDoS mitigation services put into place. So if we're seeing we're under attack, especially in a denial of service activity, we go ahead and call these guys, and immediately things are starting to be mitigated. And we work in concert with them. We've had one case where a DDoS attacker actually was quite crafty, and we spent a number of hours working with our DDoS mitigation vendor to tamp him down, or her down.
Okay.
So as far as confidentiality, we have a security team at ARIN, and we monitor our traffic, making sure that everything is okay. All our laptops are remotely managed by our operations team, and only a few people have administrative rights on those boxes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Middle rear mic.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. Start with the Whois. If it was a single IP, I wouldn't see it as a DDoS. I would just, or whatever,
Yep.
an attack of service. The whole point was it was coming from, as you said, hundreds of thousands of IPs.
That's
it was
correct.
meant to disguise. It was meant to be done for whatever purpose, and it was probably outside of what I would consider acceptable norms.
I agree.
As long as ARIN has a fair use, fair AUP, you need to protect it so that the 99.99999% of people have fair access. If you need to increase your systems to allow for that, that's one way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one model. If you can't do that and it's going to affect 99.9999% of people, then do what you need to do, and I'm perfectly fine with that. That's the one there. Can you go to the IRR slides? We're having an open consultation right now.
Yep.
The ones about the number of objects per. You had the 7,000. Yeah, that one. Thank you. How many? Have you looked at any of those top 6 at the very top? For how many of them are actually legit ARIN records, or they're just using ARIN's IRR as a place to store everything or do whatever they may be doing?
We've done some a modicum of analysis, and there's at least one of those organizations that's using them for backup routes. So they're not the whole that space, but they're using it as backup routes so in case there's some sort of attack, and they're a DDoS mitigation vendor.
So the number that I'm so I was interested in that. The number I'm actually most interested in is the very bottom one. That's grown substantially.
Yes, it is.
Over the last couple of years, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, that's awesome. Those are the people that weren't in IRR at all, that now have records in IRR. So that's great to see. The last thing was, sorry,
Yeah.
Mark. A couple years ago, you did a security audit.
Yes.
Is that still being done regularly?
We had a security audit done last year.
Okay.
Actually, we had redesigned our network, and it came out very favorably. So every time we've had a security audit, we've actually improved our security.
With the CentOS 4 boxes you mentioned, and the Java 7 that you're still running,
Yep.
and the Cisco 3750 that you mentioned on the page, and all of that, you guys came out clean.
We came out clean. So thankfully, these boxes I mentioned are on the very internal part of our network. So for example, the Cisco switches that I mentioned, they are in a very protected network that holds the database of all ARIN's records, for example. So if someone got on there, that would, well, first of all, the switches themselves aren't really so much the issue. Getting onto the Postgres boxes, it certainly would be an issue.
So my comment on this was, I know there are a lot of new features that our community is asking for. One of those new features probably should be to make sure that stuff like CentOS 4 boxes aren't on the network. And maybe we lose sight of that and we want the new feature, but keeping the playground clean might be also just as important.
So this actually, internal to ARIN and at the board level, is a topic that is not lost on us. The board actually asked for a report regarding the more aging aspects of ARIN's infrastructure and received that, and has caused a bit of discussion. So that came up actually at the last meeting and budget cycle, and so I've been talking with the board about what we were referring to as the technical debt of the organization. What have we built over time that hasn't been updated, or because we haven't touched it, that needs to be swept behind so it doesn't cause problems, and we're paying a bit of attention to that. In terms of prioritization, you guys asked for a lot of stuff, so it's a balancing act. But yes, I do appreciate it. We're taking the lowest part of the technical debt and trying to kill it, the things that have the highest exposure.
I appreciate that, John. A spoiler on a Model T Ford is still a Model T Ford. Thank you.
Noted.
Keep going.
Okay, Owen?
Owen DeWong, ARIN-AC. With regards to the Whois abuse, that is a disturbing pattern. I think the actions you took are entirely reasonable. I would like to see us perhaps be very proactive in preventing people from data mining Whois in that manner if they have not signed the bulk Whois agreement, because that is almost certainly somebody attempting to do an end run on acquiring all the bulk Whois data without signing the agreement, and therefore feeling that they are not subject to the AUP that is shrink wrapped in every Whois result, and also even more stringent in the bulk agreement. So perhaps if there is some low-hanging fruit automated way to rate limit a pattern of queries seen even when it comes in from a distributed group of hosts, where if we are able to in an automated way identify the pattern and put all of those hosts into a host group and say, okay, combined these hosts have a rate limit of 1 query per 10 seconds or whatever, that might be worth doing if it's not too much of an engineering lift.
Yeah. Actually, truth be told, we're going to start looking at tar pitting. So if you get to a certain query limit over a period of time, we're going to start slowing you down. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. We also, when we've been looking at this, it's interesting to see that you would see all of a sudden an amazing spike of queries from a particular IP address, and then it would go away. And so we would ingest all those queries and respond to them, and it wouldn't be a blip in our monitoring systems because it was just 1 second. So it's interesting when you look at the logs, what people are doing with their systems. So RS.
Rob Seastrom, New Star, asking on behalf of not only my current employer, but other folks I've talked to, back to the tech debt retiring subject. I've worked with both Puppet and Ansible, and I applaud your choice.
Thank you.
It's very easy to quantify the costs of doing the migration. You figure out how much work it's going to take writ large, and then you multiply it by, the fully loaded rate, you got a number. However, there are savings associated with the retirement of that tech debt. Mm-hmm. The one that I always explain to people who are sufficiently tech savvy is the huge value that a well-curated core brings to you as opposed to leaning on contrib. Have you managed to capture that in any way? I believe that ARIN is uniquely suited in that you don't consider your cost savings to be like, secret sauce and competitive information. And being able to share that migration story would be valuable to those of us who are trying to sell other organizations on retiring that exact tech debt.
We are focusing primarily on characterizing the trade-off for our own budget decisions. And, given the high pressures to get things done and retire the tech debt, we haven't put any cycles into trying to better quantify, characterize, and share and publish that. And even that request becomes yet another resource strain.
Oh, no, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking if you've already done it.
We have not done it.
Okay, that's fine. Mark and I both know that the value is there. I'm just fishing for something to help sell other people on it.
And we recognize the values there. I mean, I am not without experience managing technical operations of various sizes. And so we've had the discussion both in the management team and at the board level about the balance between retirement versus new features. And we've pushed hard on new features. We're going to be pushing a little bit harder now on retirement of technical debt.
Good, thank you.
Larry?
Larry Blunkmerit. I'm curious about how many queries you're seeing from cloud providers like Amazon. We took a big jump in February, and now it's the dominant source of queries.
Yeah.
And we're not sure what to do about it.
So you must know this. So the answer to that question is yes. We're seeing a large increase fractionally coming from content from CDN providers from the cloud. And what's interesting here, I mentioned this I think maybe 3 or 4 talks ago, but someone actually put out a cookbook on how you can actually scan our database, right? And here's the tools I use to make it happen, and how to use the AWS cloud to make that happen. So it's out there, and people are doing it. Some are better than others, frankly, at making that happen. But yes, we're definitely seeing a larger share of our traffic coming from places like AWS.
Do you do anything to limit it or rate limit it?
So not at this point in time. We're playing with different technologies in terms of what we think we can do that seems to make sense. And the tar pitting thing is something that we're going to try to implement here very shortly.
You mentioned INetNum and INet6num objects in your IR. Those aren't really IRR objects. They're
True.
RIR, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to continue to support those in the new IRR? Or, I think it'd be better to steer people to use the RIR for that information.
I understood. It's just that right now they're decoupled systems, and you have to have this to have it in that framework. So, thank you, Larry.
Any other questions for Mark?
Yes, one very important question. Will there be video in October of the shooting of the CentOS box at your farm?
I think we can make that happen.
Oh, excellent, excellent work.
Okay, thank you, Mark.